Yeah, I don't know if anyone's going to be here, so. Kind of depressing, but that's it. People in the waiting room.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening. How are you?
Good, good. Well, according to my clock, it is 6:45 on Tuesday, January 12th, 2021. In accordance with the governor's orders, executive orders 2009 and subsequent orders related to COVID-19 pandemic, this meeting is open to the public and may be attended in person or electronically. Public comment for public hearings must be submitted via email to tvanderwood@munster.org or by mail. Attention Planning Director, 10,005 Ridge Road, Munster, Indiana 46321. Or all correspondence related received prior to the meeting will be read and entered in the record. Tom, let's start. I'll call the meeting to order. And can we all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
with
liberty and justice for all.
Tom, I'll have you call roll to see if we have a quorum, to ensure we have a quorum.
Okay, Sharon Mayer.
Present.
Stuart Friedman.
Present.
Daniel Buxa. Here. Jonathan Peterson. Here. And Roland Raffin.
Present. Seeing we have a quorum, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the approval of minutes, the regular business meeting of December 8th, 2020. Has the commission had a chance to review the minutes? If so, what is the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Mr. Buxa.
Make a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
We have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
I will second that, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Freeman seconds. Any discussion? All in favor state aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes. Next item on the agenda is preliminary hearing. There is none, so we'll move on to public hearing. The first public hearing is BZA docket 2012 B Corp, Chicago Quarter LLC, represented by Kimberly Horn, requesting approval of developmental standard variances table 266405A7 of the Munster zoning ordinance to expand driveway beyond the minimum permitted width, to permit off-street parking in the first lot layer, to permit off-street loading in the first lot layer, and to waive the required screening for loading areas from table 26640503 to waive the minimum dimensions for a parking area. Tom, if this is correct, it looks like the petitioner is asking to continue this.
That is correct. You may recall that this project came to a public hearing in November. At the time, the Board of Zoning Appeals had some recommendations for the petitioner as far as the design of the driveway and some other recommendations for implementing off-peak delivery and pickup hours for their trucks in an attempt to ameliorate some of the effects of the truck congestion at the GE plant, or the GE distribution facility, I should say. They submitted a letter prior to the December meeting stating that they were working on some of those, working to implement some of those suggestions. So they had requested that the project be tabled in December, so it was. As of this week, I spoke with representatives from Kimley Horn, and they indicated to me via email that they would like an opportunity to speak to the board tonight, but they are requesting another continuance. So they're not requesting action from the board, but they do want to make a presentation. So with that being said,
Tom, I'll turn it over to the representatives that are here to give a brief presentation. Since we're not voting on it tonight or calling for anything but a continuance, we'll keep a brief presentation on this matter.
Okay, it looks to me like we have Jonathan Goki and Nate Grout representing GE tonight.
Yes, this is Jonathan Goki. Am I good to go?
Yes, you are, Jonathan.
Okay. Based on the recommendations of the board members back in November, so we were able to go and negotiate and worked with 8 large customers in the region and the carriers that serve them. And we were able to get agreement with them to begin moving some of our pickups for earlier appointments. And it also allowed us to accept some deliveries earlier. So in all, we've gotten agreements to move 7 to 8 trucks per week from picking up in the afternoons between 3 p.m. and 6 p.m. Those are now moved to the early mornings between 7 and 8 a.m. And then we were able to get, because the pickup appointments were moved up, we were able to move up the deliveries that would serve those pickups, move those earlier. So those were 2 to 3 trucks per day that we had delivering in the afternoon, sometime between 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. Now they're coming in the night before from 8 to 12 p.m. So we were able to secure some agreements to move some stuff around based on what the board recommended. I think we're still seeing some traffic out there. We're still looking at some of our live inbounds that we get in the mornings to see if we can move those in the evening, but we're just now starting that step now. And it takes agreement with the customers and the carriers to be able to do that. So if we can do more, we will. And one other thing that I wanted to, this isn't something new that we've been doing, but I wanted to make sure that the board was aware of. So we cap our sales volume in that facility to no more than 70 outbound loads per day, just to make sure that it doesn't get any more out of control than it ever does now. So I just wanted everyone to know that we do things to try to keep that building from having extremely high volumes. Yeah.
Jonathan, if you have 70 outbound, how many inbound do you have today?
Well, that's 70 outbounds. It's probably, and I don't know offhand, it's probably 50, 60.
So you could have roughly 120 different semis there a day, correct?
Mm-hmm. Correct.
Okay. Okay. Anyone have any questions for the gentleman from GE before I look for a motion to continue this matter?
I do. Mike Purcell.
Hold on, Mike. Tom,
Okay.
Are we opening this up to the public right now, or since it's just a continuous, are we?
That would be at your discretion. I would suggest that, given that they're not asking for any action, and they've sort of acknowledged that they've taken some measures, but have not seen all the fruit of that just yet, that maybe it's premature to have another public hearing. I mean, it was open and closed already, so I don't know if it's necessary to have a public hearing.
No, I think it would be prudent to the town when this is finally presented on what their final plan is, that we reopen it up to a public hearing. That's my position as a chairman. Because if there's businesses and residents that are affected by this, they should have some kind of input at the public hearing regarding this matter. But Mr. Purcell, could you just give a short statement tonight? Since this is not really a matter that we're going to be voting on tonight, this is still a continuous, and we'll have a public hearing when they represent it and come to the public.
Sure. Just to recap, since I was last on with you guys in November, it just really hasn't changed much. And again, back to, I'm happy for GE. They've done it. I mean, obviously business is good with all the trucks coming. But I think it's more, I just want to reiterate that I just feel GE needs to help do something to alleviate other than what they're planning to do, because there's more than 10 to 15 trucks every day. I promise you, every day. Today we had another instance. So that's it. That's just a recap of what I've mentioned before.
Thank you, Mr. Tom, can you make sure, obviously it's another public hearing, would they have to put a notice out there to make sure people are informed, or how's that going to work?
Well, the original public hearing was advertised and you continued it. So
okay.
Every
Tom,
time
you continue it
to a specific date.
Can we make sure if there's anyone that's been at these meetings and has dialogue or input regarding this, that they be notified the next time it's on the agenda so they don't miss it? Like Mr. Purcell or anyone else, if we have them on public record and their name and address?
We could do that. We could alert those people who have attended the public hearings in the past.
Right. Thank you. Ms. Mayor, you had a question?
Yes, this question was for Mr. Goki. So the adjustments that you've made in your deliveries, how long has that been in effect? Is it, I mean, a week, a month? You know, how long ago did it start?
I would say it's been about 3 weeks.
Okay. And so, I mean, has it been every day there's less, or, I mean, it's been the same for the last 3 weeks?
I think it has helped some. I mean, I certainly, you know, I don't sit there, I'm not right across the street and I'm not watching it all day, but from what I'm hearing from my contacts on site is it's helped. I'm also hearing that it's not an everyday occurrence when we have 15 trucks parked down the street. But it has helped some. I still think that there's, you know, I think this project is still very valid. I think this project helps. You know, the incident that Mr. Purcell mentioned earlier today was there was a van that was parked across the street from the warehouse, and our trucks couldn't navigate out turning left on the Superior Avenue to get out. If we had this project in place for the wider entrance, we probably could have navigated, you know, through that, you know, a lot much easier, and not having to move the van or have an issue or anything like that. So I do still think the project is valid. I think what we've done has helped, but I think the project will help as well.
Anyone have any questions for Mr. Gettke?
Roland, if the board is through commenting, I do have one additional comment for them. Actually, two things. One, I did visit the site today, and while there was a line of trucks, it was not quite as long as it has been in the past. Although I think we know that when this project was first presented, it was the peak season for deliveries. So it has tapered off a little bit, I think, just on seasonal grounds. But I'll note that there still is a pretty long line out there as of today. The second thing I'll note is that I did receive a phone call from a representative of a neighboring business, BMWC, which is the contractor across the street. And they were sort of inquiring about ways that they could protect their property from some of these trucks, which are turning around in the cul-de-sac there. And I guess not quite making the turn and running over their property. So there's some other, I guess, adverse impacts related to some of this truck traffic as well that I think we at least need to keep in mind. And I just wanted Mr. Gogi to be aware of that.
Well, Tom, if there's any other vision that the town of Munster has while working with these engineers on this project, we need to come up with ideas above and beyond what this project is entailing, I think, to eliminate this problem. So if we need to relook at their site, if there's any other way they could stack on that property and not be a hindrance to the rest of that subdivision, we need to look at it with them. And I think GE, as a good citizen, needs to look at it as well.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Mr. Buxa.
Make a motion to continue to the next meeting.
We have a motion on the floor.
I second that motion.
Mr. Peterson seconds. Any discussion? Tom, could you please call roll?
Sharon Mayer,
Yes.
Stuart Freeman,
Yes.
Daniel Buxa,
Yes.
Jonathan Peterson,
Yes.
Roland Raffin.
Yes. Motion passes. Gentlemen, please work with Tom and staff at the town to get on the agenda when you are ready to come back. The next item on the agenda is BZA docket 20-015, Humane Indiana requesting approval of a variance to permit a window sign that exceeds the 25% maximum area of a window and exceeds the maximum number of window signs at 421 45th Street. Tom, I'll turn this over to you to give us a little recap.
Thank you. This project came before the board last month at a preliminary hearing. The request is to keep a sign that was installed without permit and which does not comply with our zoning ordinance. The applicant is requesting two variances, one for the maximum percentage of glass onto which window sign can be applied, and the second is for the number of window signs to be permitted. The subject location is the Humane Indiana headquarters, I guess you could say, which is located on 421 45th Street. As you can see in the staff report, we've included a photo of the sign in question. At the preliminary hearing last month, there was some discussion whether a wall sign could have been installed or a conforming window sign, and what we sort of concluded was that neither one of those types of signs could be installed without a different variance. So in this instance, I think the applicant, although it's regretful that they didn't obtain a permit prior to installing the sign, I think they're justified in requesting a variance to keep the sign in question.
Thank you, Tom. Is there anyone here to speak on behalf of the Humane Society? I know they were here last month.
Yeah, Brian Fitzpatrick is here on Zoom.
Yes, good evening. Can you hear me now?
Yes, Mr. Fitzpatrick.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for taking this time tonight. Everything that Tom's discussed is what we discussed last month on that call. The monument sign that was at the street was old and in need of repair. When I went to get that fixed, because we had changed our name 3 years ago to Humane Indiana from Humane Society Calumet area, we no longer fell, I guess, grandfathered with the rules. So that the price to put a monument sign back at the street was just not something that we could even consider. So the decals were put on the window, and strictly me, not knowing that that would also be required for a permit. So that's where we landed with that.
Thank you, Mr. Fitzpatrick. Does anyone have any questions from the board that they'd like to address with Mr. Fitzpatrick?
Yeah, yes, I would, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Freeman.
How much was the proposal for the monument sign repair or the replacement that you thought was too much money?
It was about $12,000.
And how much did it cost you to put up these decals?
Less than $200.
Okay.
Big price difference.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Buxa.
Question to Mr. Kilpatrick. Is your organization a not-for-profit?
Yes, we are. We've been in that location for about 20 years. We are a nonprofit. That's our animal shelter and our low-cost spay-neuter clinic.
Thank you.
Anyone else have any questions for Mr. Fitzpatrick? That being said, Tom, I'd like to open up the meeting to the public hearing. Is there anyone here to speak in regards to this public hearing? I'll give you a couple seconds, Tom, to check to see with the Zoom and if anyone's raising their hand.
I'm not seeing anyone here, but there's nobody in the room. And I don't see anybody here on the screen that's raising their hand.
I'll give them the old going once, going twice. That being said, I'll bring it back to the board. What is the pleasure of the board regarding this petition?
Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion to approve this petition as requested.
Thank you, Ms. Mayor. We have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
Mr. Chairman, I second that motion.
Mr. Peters seconds. Is there any discussion on this motion?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Buxa.
just to make it official for the record, would you allow council to advise whether approval publication is in order?
Yes, I will. Mr. Wicklund, has that been met? And thank you, Mr. Buxa.
I can tell you that I've reviewed the proofs and I found that they
Met.
conform with the code.
Okay. That being said, we have a motion and a second. Is there any other further discussion? Tom, would you please call roll?
Sharon Mayer,
Yes.
Stuart Friedman,
Yes.
Daniel Buxa,
Yes.
Jonathan Peterson,
Yes.
Roland Raffin.
Yes. Motion passes. Mr. Fitzpatrick, if you have any other questions regarding this, you can always reach out to the staff at the town of Munster. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
We have no findings of facts tonight. The next item is additional items for discussion, elections of officers. We're looking for a chair and a vice chair. Anyone have any ideas? Anyone?
Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Peterson.
I spoke with Mr. Friedman and I attempted to reach out to Mr. Buxa, so I hope Mr. Buxa would be fine with this. I nominate Stuart Friedman to be chair for the coming year and Mr. Buxa to be vice chair for the coming year.
Mr. Friedman, Mr. Buxa, Ms. Mayor, any opinions or thoughts or anything?
I accept the nomination, Mr. Chairman.
I would accept the nomination, Mr. Chairman.
All right. So are you making a motion, Mr. Peterson?
I so moved.
Is there a second?
Chairman, I will second.
Mr. Buxa seconds. Any discussion on this motion? That being said, Tom, would you please call roll?
Sharon Mayer,
Yes.
Stuart Friedman,
Can I say yes? I guess yes.
If you want the position.
Okay, I don't want to do anything improper.
Who is next, Tom?
Is that a yes then? Okay, Daniel Buxa.
Yes.
Jonathan Peterson
Yes.
and Roland Raffin.
Yes. The next regular meeting is February 9th, 2021 at 6:45 p.m. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Mr. Peterson, do we have a second? Is that Mr. Buxa?
Yes.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Have a great week, everybody. See you next month.
Okay.
Happy New Year, everybody.
Yep, we'll see you.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
I've reviewed the minutes and I would move for them to be accepted.
We have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
I will second that motion.
Mr. Gardner seconds that motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Tonight, we do not have any preliminary hearings. The next item is the public hearing. The first item on the agenda is PC 20008 B Corps Corridor Chicago LLC, represented by Kimberly Horn, requesting approval of a developmental plan to expand the driveway, alter parking lot, and install landscaping and screening at the GE Appliance Distribution Center at 475 Superior Avenue. Tom, with the agenda item being continued on the BZA, I assume we're going to continue this.
That's correct. Yeah, the applicant has appeared before the Planning Commission at a public hearing. However, their development plan is contingent upon the receipt of a number of variances from the Board of Zoning Appeals. Since those variances have not yet been approved, they were tabled again tonight. I would recommend that the Plan Commission table this to next month as well.
Tom, as we stated also at the BZA meeting, I'd like to have an opportunity to keep the public hearing open in case anyone would like to comment on it whenever they bring a revised plan or their this continued plan on the agenda. Do we have a motion to continue this action item?
Mr. Chairman, I will make a motion to table PC docket number 20-008.
We have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second, Councilman Tulowitzki. Any other discussion? That being said, Tom, can you please call roll?
Yes, Councilor Mellon,
Yes.
Councilor Gardner,
Yes.
Councilor Tulowitzki,
Yes.
Stuart Friedman,
Yes.
Roland Raffin,
Yes.
Brian Speck.
Yes.
This motion passes. The next item we have on the agenda is PC 20009. Guy Costanza GM Contracting requesting approval of a developmental plan for a commercial development at 407-411 Ridge Road. Tom, I believe we had some discussion earlier regarding this item, and the petitioner wasn't quite ready for a developmental plan public hearing due to missing landscaping plans, architectural plans, and a few other items. And I believe they were looking to continue this item tonight.
That's correct. The petition is for the development plan approval for a one lot commercial development, approximately 2,500 square feet, located at 407-411 Ridge Road. On the screen, you see that this is two lots that have actually never been formally subdivided or platted. So the developer has to both subdivide the property, consolidating them into the two parcels into a single lot, and receive development plan approval or approval of a development plan for their project. Both of those items are on the agenda tonight. As you will recall, the development plan approval is a very kind of detailed approval of the project. So you would be approving not only the site plan and the engineering, but the landscaping plan, the photometric and lighting plan, and the architecture of the building. So all of those elements are addressed in our form-based zoning code, and the request would be to evaluate the project based on those standards. I've provided in the report here a table showing in what ways it does and does not comply. I've also
Tom, if someone's got a microphone on, can you mute that? Because I got getting some static from somebody that's on this call.
Here, Roland. Not seeing anything.
Well,
maybe it's John Reed. It seems to have gone away.
Okay.
In any case, there are a few so there's a few sort of, for lack of a better term, deficiencies with the plan that's been proposed here in terms of complying with our code standards. And as of the publication of this staff report, there were still a couple items missing. I've spoken with the engineer from Torringa Engineering, and I've also spoken with John Reed, who's the attorney for the applicant. My understanding is that both of those parties are seeking a continuance on the development plan tonight.
Tom,
I see John Reed is here on the Zoom if he has anything to add.
If Mr. Reed is here, please unmute his microphone if he's here to speak on behalf of the petitioner regarding this developmental plan review.
I will ask him to unmute.
think I have got it unmuted.
Mr. Reed, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Yes, we have obviously tonight you'll see, as you see on your agenda, and as Tom explained, there's development plan approval as well as subdivision approval. I had met with the engineer, the architect, and the owner yesterday, and we had a few arguments about what had been properly submitted and what hadn't. And we do know that our full lighting plan is not submitted. There are some elevations of the building that need to be resubmitted. I have all the building materials. Obviously, when we're doing things on Zoom, it's a little difficult to go touch, feel, look, and see what they really are. But I do have those, and I'm going to get them to Tom before the week is out. Obviously, we would request that the development site plan approval be tabled until next month's meeting so we can get everything appropriately submitted to Tom in a timely fashion so that you can have it. And when we drop everything off at Town Hall, I will, you know, I'm sure Tom will let everybody know. If anybody wants to look at the materials, the glass, the brick, the window frames, that'll all be dropped off there. But we would ask to table that. We do want to go forward with the one lot subdivision tonight, but that of course is contingent upon the, that would be contingent upon ultimately the development plan approval as well. But at least we can get one step taken care of tonight, if that's okay.
Thank you, Mr. Reed. Does anyone on the Plan Commission have any questions for Mr. Reed and the petitioner? That being said, I'll look for a motion to continue the developmental plan review.
Yeah, Roland, one thing to mention, this is a public hearing, so you may want to open the public hearing and close it.
Ready to the motion.
Well, Tom, would you, if it's a developmental plan review and all the things aren't submitted that the public can comment on, would you want to keep it open for public comment next month, or do we just reopen it if people come there after they see things that are submitted?
I would suggest that if there is anyone here, they may want to comment on it tonight, and then, yeah, once we get the full application, give them the opportunity to comment again next month.
Okay. If there's anyone here that would like to speak on this petition regarding this project at 407 Ridge Road, please raise your hand or signal Tom, whether in person or on Zoom, so you can comment on this project.
Yeah, and I'm not seeing anyone, so.
All right, going once, going twice. I'll bring it back to the board. What is the?
Mr. Chairman, with the public hearing.
Excuse me?
Again, with nobody speaking at the public hearing, I would motion to table PC docket number 20-009.
To continue this?
To table this motion, yes. Or okay. Motion to table this docket until next meeting, until we have all the information.
Mr. Chairman, I'll second that.
Mr. Freeman seconds. Any discussion? Tom, has the petitioner met all the obligations requiring publication and noticing?
They have.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Like I said earlier, I'd like to be able to have the option, though, to allow people to have some input if they have any input regarding the elevations, the landscaping, the lighting when it comes back to the Plan Commission next month. That being said, Tom, could you please call roll on this?
Yes, Councilor Mellon. You're on mute.
Sorry, yes.
Councilor Gardner?
Yes.
Councilor Tulowitzki?
Yes.
Stuart Friedman?
Yes.
Roland Radman?
Yes.
Brian Specht?
Yes.
Motion passes. Gentlemen, please work with staff regarding the continuation of your developmental plan review.
The next item. We should have everything submitted pretty quickly here.
Thank you, Mr. Reed. The next item up is PC 20011 Guy Costanza GM contracting requesting approval of a preliminary plat for one lot commercial subdivision at 407 411 Ridge Road. Tom, I'll turn this over to you.
Thanks, Roland. We kind of discussed this already in connection with the previous petition, but there's two pieces, as I said. There's the development plan, and then there's the preliminary plat. And while they're interrelated, and the approvals are sort of connected, the plat that they have submitted, which is shown here on your screen, is compliant with our codes and standards. And it's such a small subdivision, just a single lot subdivision. I don't anticipate any changes to the development plan would impact the plat. So with that being said, in order to kind of just move this project forward and get one of the items off the table, I would recommend that we would just approve this preliminary plat upon the condition of receiving final development plan approval.
Okay, so I heard you correctly. You look at approving this one lot subdivision based on down the road, the developmental plan review approval.
Right, so by approving it conditionally tonight, it would remain essentially unapproved until the development plan is approved, at which point it would be automatically considered to be approved. I'll also note that if there were some minor changes that would have to be made as a result of that development plan, that could be done to the final plat, because again, you're approving a preliminary plat tonight. You would still have an opportunity to approve the final plat at a later date.
Okay. Any questions from the board to staff? I'll turn it over to Mr. Reed. Mr. Reed, any thoughts?
Yes, I think Tom stated it exactly correctly, that this is preliminary approval. And if the motion, if you so choose to make that motion, that it be contingent upon the ultimate approval of the development plan as well. That way, if the development plan doesn't go through, the subdivision doesn't pass, and basically nothing happens to the arrangement of the lot. So,
thank you, Mr. Reed.
Thank you.
Tom, since this is a public hearing, I like to check to make sure all the notices and requirements have been met regarding this public hearing.
Yes, they have been met.
Okay. That being said, I'd like to turn it over to the public hearing. Is there anyone on Zoom or in person that would like to speak regarding this petition? You see anyone, Tom?
I'm not seeing anybody in the room or on Zoom, so I think it would be safe to close the public hearing.
Going once, going twice. I will close the public hearing and bring it back to the board. Do we have a motion regarding this petition?
I'll move to approve PC docket number 20-011, granting approval of a preliminary plat for a one lot commercial subdivision at 407 Florida Merge Road, contingent upon the plan commission approval of a development plan for the same property.
So we have a motion on the floor regarding this petition. Do we have a second?
I'll second that motion.
Mr. Gardner seconds. Tom, any discussion on this motion? Being none, Tom, would you please call roll?
Yes, Councilor Mellon.
Yes.
Councilor Gardner.
Yes.
Councilor Tulowitzki.
Yes.
Stuart Friedman.
Yes.
Roland Raffin.
Yes.
And Brian Specht.
Yes.
The next item on the agenda is the findings of fact. There are none presented tonight. We'll move on to other business, additional items for discussion, revised 1/11/2021, PC 21001, Maple Leaf Crossing LLC requesting final plat approval for Maple Leaf Crossing subdivision, a planned unit development located 9415 Calumet Avenue.
I apologize for jumping in before I sign off. I just want to thank everybody for their time. Much appreciated. We'll see you again soon. Thank you.
Don, I'll see you next month. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Roland. Before you, with this application, is the final plat approval for 9450 Calumet Avenue, which is the Maple Leaf Crossing planned unit development. By way of background, I'll just kind of go over the process that we followed on this project. The preliminary plat for this was approved in May of 2020, contingent upon, with some contingencies. In July of 2020, though, the Plan Commission did approve the Plan Unit Development Amendment, which was then finally approved by the Town Council in that same month. So the preliminary plat was approved earlier this year, as well as the Plan Unit Development Ordinance and Plan, which kind of went hand in hand with that plat. With a final plat, there's kind of two things that we look at, and you'll probably remember this because we just recently approved the final plat for the Fairway Addition subdivision. There's kind of like two things. One is we review that final plat to determine whether or not it substantially conforms to the preliminary plat, which was already approved. And then the second thing is we review whether or not the public improvements have been completed or whether there's a financial mechanism to provide for their completion. So with respect to the plat itself, we have reviewed it and determined that it is essentially the same as the preliminary plat, which was approved already. So in that respect, it does comply with all of our codes and ordinances. With respect to the public improvements, there's an amendment to the development agreement, which is attached to your report here. And what it does is, in the past, I know that we've accepted bonds for public improvements, but in this instance, there's a mechanism included in the development agreement between the town and the developer, which essentially provides that financial surety that's a requirement of the final plat approval. So having met those two criteria, I would say that this plat is in good order and meets the standards of our subdivision ordinance. And so I would recommend that the Plan Commission approve this tonight.
Thank you, Tom. Does anyone on the board have any questions for Tom?
I have a kind of general question. So after the final plat's approved, if that's what we do tonight, and then in the building of the road or the other improvements, if there are any changes required to the plat, how does that work?
Can you repeat that, Councilor Tulowitzki?
Yeah, sorry if you can't hear me, my audio, I couldn't get it to work tonight. So we're approving the final plat. As the improvements are made, Maple Leaf Boulevard is built, for example, if there are changes required to the plat, how does that happen? How's the plat updated?
If for some reason there was a need to change either the road or any one of the lots that are platted or any of the easements, you can amend the plat. So you would go through the same process that we're following now with the preliminary and the final plat, but it would just be an amendment to the Maple Leaf Crossing PUD plat.
Okay, thank you. That was my.
Yeah, so it could be done.
Anyone else have any questions?
And this plat that's in front of us is for all phases, correct? Again, it's going to be done in phases, but this includes all the phases.
Correct. Yeah, that's correct. There's the plat here includes primarily about four things. One includes the public road dedication on the north side of the property. It includes the 7 development lots, and then the 2 outlots. And then finally, it includes any easements or like utility easements and those types of things. So that really comprises the bulk of the plat itself. It's kind of like a legal document. So when the final plat is approved, it goes and it's recorded at the county. The lots become real. Right now, they're really not real. They've been approved. They're on a plan, but they don't become real for the purposes of taxes or anything else. I'll also say that apart from, I mentioned the two sort of criteria that we look at when we recommend an approval of a final plat. Essentially, the design and the layout of a piece of property is approved at that preliminary plat stage. So at this point, when you come to the final plat, it's essentially a ministerial decision. You look at whether or not the final plat looks like the preliminary plat, and whether or not they've satisfied any public improvement requirements that the town may have. And if those two boxes are checked, you know, it's a ministerial decision, and the planning commission would be sort of expected to approve it.
I have no further questions.
Anyone else have any questions? Tom, just real quickly. So this matches up with the site plan we kind of saw before. And when I'm looking at this and I see the 57-foot easement, that's all subject later on to the Calumet Avenue possible underpass, correct?
Yeah. When you say the 57-foot easement, are you referring to the?
Well, you got a retaining wall at 52 feet wide off of Calumet Avenue. So there's an easement down along Calumet Avenue, runs north and south. That's all in place there in case an underpass comes through, correct?
That's correct. Yeah, there's two easements that run along the east side of the property. One is that retaining wall easement, which is what it is it provides the town the ability to install basically the tiebacks for a retaining wall for the underpass. There's also a no access easement along the east side, which is to the benefit of the town. So in the event that we did construct an underpass, we wouldn't be, I don't think, financially liable for removing any type of access to the property because the no access easement is already in place.
Okay. So basically, you're looking for a motion to approve this, final plat approval with the condition, with the mechanism in place that if the developer doesn't put in the road at a certain time, the town can come in and put the road and capture the money during the project, during the repayment of the project, correct?
Correct.
Correct. The amendment to the development agreement puts a deadline of July 1st, 2022 for the completion of the road.
All right, that being said, if there's no other questions, what's the pleasure of the board?
Roland, I'll also just mention that the applicants are here in the room if you'd like them to make a presentation.
Oh, they are? Okay. I was looking online to see if anyone was here and I didn't see anybody's name. So yes, Tom, bring them up to the microphone. They can explain what they're looking for and the reason why. My only question is I'm kind of curious on why they don't have a number on what that road would cost or the design of it yet.
Good evening. Ron, your question was about the road. We have the road in place.
Yeah, is this Mr. Beach? I believe I see.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. Could you just say your name and address for the public record, please?
Sure. Dated 1630 Cherry Blossom Drive.
Thank you.
We have the road design in place. We met with the town engineer and department heads, 2 weeks ago, and went over it and listened to their comments. And I think we have all of that in place now, so we can put it out for bid. But we do have the permit where we were able to start demolition. And I think we have everything finalized now that we need to go out and get those bids, but that's been within the last 30 days.
So it's your intention, obviously, then to put it in so it doesn't fall back on a town, obviously.
Yes, well, if you see the layout of this, the only access to the property, or the main access to the property, is through this road. So if we don't put the road in, nobody will get to the hotel and nobody will get to the professional building. It is a lifeline to the success of the development. And no one would suffer more from not putting it in than we would. So we absolutely will put that road in.
Does anyone on the commission have any questions for Mr. Beach and his team? Going once, going twice?
I might ask what if there's an estimate of when you expect the road to be started or put in?
We expect to have it completed by July 1st, 2022. Again, we just met in December to go over the final parameters. So we have not gotten bids for it as of this meeting. I would hope that we would be able to start on it summer. Right now, we have the crew out there doing the underground work. There is a storm sewer that will be going underneath the road. That work is underway. If you drive by there right now, I think you'll see the backhoes that are digging and putting in the storm sewer. So to that sense, the work already is underway. We hope to have that completed in the next 2 months. Once that's done, we'll be able to move on to the surface level construction.
So the plan is to start construction this summer and complete it?
Well, construction has already started. There is underground construction going on now. If you've driven by, you've seen all of the asphalt in the site has been taken up, and they are excavating to put in the storm sewers daily. That was going on today.
Okay, and your best estimate of completion date is July 21st or July 1st?
Of 2022 for the road. The storm sewer is ongoing right now. We expect to have the roadway completed by July 1st of 2022.
And no earlier?
I'm sorry?
And not earlier?
That's our end deadline.
I'm asking if you have a more, like a target date. By the contract, obviously, it needs to be done by July 2022. I'm just curious.
We have not put out for bid.
Will actually be done.
Yeah, we have not put out for bids since, or gotten bids back since we spoke several weeks ago. So I can't give you an estimate of what the scheduling will be for the contractors that will put in the road. I mean, obviously sooner would be better. Our target is to, again, have the professional building up, and we have to have that roadway in before occupants will be able to access the property. So if we can have it done earlier than that, we certainly would.
Mr. Beach, when do you anticipate breaking ground in the first building there?
Our hope is to get plans to you in the next 60 days for approval. And as soon as we get that approved, then we can break ground.
Okay.
I'm kind of with Mr. Tulowitzki. I know what the agreement says, that it's in July of 2022. It seems like a long time to complete your road, and I know you haven't put out bids, but obviously the sooner the better. And I know that that's I'm assuming that's your plan as well.
Here, Jay, Lisa, I can speak to the road. The site work is ongoing, should be done by April. Simultaneously, we're drawing the professional office building with our structural engineer, architect, mechanical engineer. Hope to come onto the ground spring, early summer with that building. At the same time, the Hyatt is drawing their building and going through their approvals with Hyatt and then to come in front of the town. The road would probably be the last thing we would put in, probably in the spring of 22, so it doesn't get beaten up by the construction vehicles. So there'll be gravel down, the sewer will be in. The only thing that'll be left, curb and gutter will be in. The only thing left to be done will be the binder coat of the asphalt. So I would say it would be at the tail end of the spring of next year when we would put the coat on for the road, probably the same time we do the parking lot. Because it's going to be a construction zone for the next year and a half.
And that's two of your biggest buildings on that project.
Correct. So I'm not going to give them a new road for the trucks to tear it up. It'll be sewer,
Thank you, Mr.
gravel, and the construction road while we do the buildings.
Anyone have any questions for Mr. Lees or Mr. Beach?
I'll ask one question with regards to the traffic study. Again, that's not part of this discussion right now, but since I have it in front of you, when does that light get signalized then? Because there has to be a traffic study done first and stuff like. What is the timeline for that process?
I would say with this spring, summer, now that the underpass is open a couple weeks ago, we'll get it going.
Okay.
Same company that did the preliminary one that I submitted will do this one. They're contracted, they have to do it. And then we're waiting the 45th Street underpass.
And the same thought then is that when that road is completed July 1st, 2022, that intersection would be signalized at that time. Is there enough time to get that signalized and that coordinated and everything?
Right.
Okay.
Any other questions from the board? If not, I'll look for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion to approve PC docket number 20-011, granting approval of a preliminary plat of a one-lot commercial subdivision. No, I'm sorry, I was reading the wrong one.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
No, that's the wrong motion.
Mr. Speck has a motion, second. Any other discussion regarding this motion?
Roland, I read the wrong motion.
Oh, I couldn't hear you right now.
I would make a motion to approve PC docket 21-001, granting final plat approval for the Maple Leaf Crossing subdivision, a plan unit development located at 9450 Calumet Avenue.
And I will second that one.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? Tom, would you please call roll?
Councilor Mullen?
Yes.
Councilor Gardner?
Yes.
Councilor Tulowitzki?
Yes.
Stuart Freeman?
Yes.
Roland Rappen?
Yes.
Brian Speck?
Yes.
Congratulations, gentlemen. Please work with staff so we can continue movement on this project.
Upward and onward. Thank you.
The next item is election of officers. I know we're missing one plan commission member tonight. Do we want to pursue this tonight or do you want to wait till next month, Tom?
I think that you're supposed to do it at the first meeting of the year.
Okay. All right. We're looking for a president or vice president. Anyone like to jump up?
Can you
Mr. Speck, Mr. Friedman, Mr. Speck?
Right now, Mr. Baker is vice president?
No, Mr. Baker is the chair. Right now, he's a president.
Okay, and you are the vice chair?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't have any problem keeping it the way it is.
Doesn't matter to me, Mr. Freeman.
It's fine with me.
Yeah, that works with me.
Okay. So is that your motion, Mr. Speck?
Sure.
All right.
Make a motion that Mr. Baker remains as president and Mr. Raffin remains as vice president.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Tom, would you please call roll?
Yes. Councilor Mellon.
Yes.
Councilor Gardner.
Yes.
Councilor Tulowitzki.
Yes.
Stuart Friedman.
Yes.
Roland Rappen.
Yes.
And Brian Speck.
Yes.
The next item on the schedule is the next regular scheduled meeting is February 9th, 2021 at 7:30. That concludes our business tonight. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
Do we have a second?
I second the motion.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, everyone, for doing your civic duty. And we'll see you next month.
Thank you. Good night,
Have a
everybody.
good week.
Good night. We'll see you.
Bye.
Bye.
Other than name of the wrong motion.